Hi there, welcome to the Year 11 moving towards Year 12 in Product Design bridging lesson. This lesson has been designed to develop your creative skills, some of the sort of skills that you would require if you were taking design and technology further into an A-level subject. In A-level, the subject is referred to as product design, but it has many similarities in its structure and content to the GCSE design technology. So this particular lesson is going to be broken down into several small parts where you are going to be required to fulfill a design brief that's been set out for you and design a particular product under a limited set of time constraints, just to test how creative and imaginative you can be in a relatively short space of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the slideshow with you. I'm going to talk you through it, and we're going to work on it through in real time. So where there is a requirement for you to undertake a particular task, I'll explain to you how long you've got, and I will give you that required time to fulfill that particular part of the task. When you've completed, hopefully you will have a comprehensive design sheet showing all the thoughts and ideas that you've generated over the course of time. So what I would ask you to do is you will require some plain paper, preferably A4 paper, and a pencil. If you've got any other equipment that might help you design, such as basic drawing equipment like rulers and a rubber and a pencil sharpener, etc., that's great. But at the very least, you will need a pencil and paper. So if you want to get those sorted out quickly, and I will start to open up the task that we would like you to do. So hopefully you can see the first slide here, and we're going to ask you to complete a design challenge. And what you're going to have to do is create an innovative design for a child's toothbrush. So the logic behind this task, we often give this to Year 11s in their taster days when we were running those as normal, before COVID limited us to the things that we can do. And we used to challenge students to this task because it kind of takes people out of their comfort zone. It's a product that you might not be particularly familiar with from a young children's point of view, but at the same time we're all familiar about the function of a toothbrush itself. So that's the premise of the task, is to design a child's toothbrush. Now we've broken this task down into several different sections, so that hopefully we can produce some really creative outcomes. So the first thing that we want you to do is just take a little look at some of the things that are on the market. Now in GCSE, you spend a little bit of time at the beginning of your project researching existing products. So it's important that we do look at the existing products on the market, so that when we're coming up to designing our own products, we can identify any gaps in the market, we can see what's already on sale, and also we can see where there might be some omissions, i.e. Things that haven't been thought of, things that haven't been considered before, and they could provide you with what we call a USP, a unique selling point. Okay, so if you take a look across some of these examples here, some familiar things that you might see there is the use of the bright colours. Bright colours, particularly primary colours, are often more appealing to a younger audience. There's things such as characterisation, i.e. things like the Winnie the Pooh characters, things that might be TV or film related that would appeal to young children. You can see that the consideration is given to how the child might hold the toothbrush, to give them a comfortable grip. Other items, things such as hygiene, very important, particularly for parents. Although the child will be the person using the toothbrush design, it will most likely be the parents that are purchasing it, and they will want to make sure that it fulfills all the requirements that they want for their child. So that might just give you a few little thoughts to consider. It's important when you look at existing products that you don't copy what's already there. We do want something different, but that's a good starting point to see what's on the market already. What we're trying to get you to do is to design in an iterative manner. Now that might be a new word for you, but you might have heard of something called iterations. When you produce iterations of something, it means you produce different variations and changes. So iterative design means continually designing and continually making changes as you go. So each time you produce a design, you would consider how successful it's been. You may do some evaluation, and from that evaluation, therefore, you can consider the positives and the negatives of your design, and then produce the next iteration of that. In other words, you'll make some minor changes and improvements, and you'll repeat that process over and over until you end up with a successful outcome. Now, we talked a little bit about this at GCSE with things such as prototype models. We often mention Sir James Dyson making his 5,000 prototypes for his vacuum cleaner. So, you know, at a professional level, designers are often, well, they're continually refining and improving their designs to reach the final outcome. So that's what we're going to do on a slightly smaller scale than 5,000, but still continually trying to get you to develop and improve your ideas. So we're going to set you a collection of design criteria. Okay, so you will have a series of design criteria provided, and for each criteria you will receive 5 minutes of planning and design time. You must continually adapt and evaluate your designs to accommodate each design criteria point, and this is, as we called it, iterative design. Criteria number 1. The first criteria for your design is going to be to make your child's toothbrush easy to hold. We often refer to this as ergonomic in shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you 5 minutes to come up with a range of toothbrush designs that focus only on being easy to hold. So I don't want you to think of anything else. Don't want to worry about colour or creative concept behind it. We purely want you to concentrate on generating ideas for toothbrushes that are easy to hold. Remember your client base. You're probably talking about children under 5 who are just learning to brush their teeth, maybe can't manipulate toothbrushes quite as well as we can, so you've got to think about a suitable shape for them. So 5 minutes for your first set of designs is going to begin now. Okay, so we should now have a range of designs that are ergonomic, therefore easy to hold for your client base, which is young children, and we said maybe under 5. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look at criteria 2. So for criteria 2, we need to look at our designs that we produce. We probably have some favourites that are starting to appear already, but we need to adapt those ideas to now consider the hygiene implications of a toothbrush. Now, young children don't always consider hygiene, but certainly their parents will do. So they will want to ensure that that toothbrush remains clean, free of germs, suitable for their child to use whenever they wish, whereas the child might conceivably just drop that toothbrush easily, or they might dump it down on the side of the bath, or really not be thinking too much about hygiene. So what you've got to do is consider how could you develop that toothbrush design to ensure that it can remain as hygienic as possible, particularly when it's not being used. Okay, so a couple of bits of advice: it might be some kind of cover that you might consider, or it might be some way of standing the toothbrush up so that the bristles don't end up becoming contaminated. Those are just a couple of things to think about, but obviously you've got to come up with the imagination and the creativity. Okay, so that's your next challenge. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, I think, on this. 5 minutes seems quite a long time, but I'm going to give you 4 minutes on this, so see if you can adapt your designs accordingly. Off you go. Okay, you've got a couple of minutes, so maybe a couple more minutes on the hygiene. Keep it in mind, it still requires an ergonomic design that's easy to hold. Okay, so that's your time up for criteria 2, which means that we can now move on to criteria 3. So let's remember that key term, iterative design. Each time you get a new criteria, you have to try and continue to include the previous criteria, but then you are adapting your design and adding the new requirements. Okay, so criteria 3 requires some kind of what we call personification or characterization. So basically, personification is something that designers use when they want to make their product more appealing, and they often try and give a design some kind of human features, whether it be sometimes, for example, perfume and aftershave bottles are designed to look like a male or female form. There's various different ways that designers use this idea. So characterization is similar. We mentioned it right near the beginning. Young children are often attracted to characters that they might know from television shows, from books, from nursery rhymes, films, etc. So it might be that you can think of a particular character that you would like to add to your toothbrush design, or it might be something quite generic like animals, something along those lines that might just make the product that little bit more appealing. Okay, I'll give you another few minutes on that one. Let's start to develop your design a little further. Off you go. Okay, if you just want to be finishing off your characterized designs. Now, don't worry if you're not an expert at drawing animals or Mickey Mouse or whoever it might be. All right, we're just looking purely at the ideas and the thoughts that you have, and the way that you can develop your ideas that little bit further. Okay, so criteria 3 was personification and characterization. So moving on to criteria number 4. Now, criteria 4 requires your toothbrush to be educational in some way. Now, when we say educational, what we mean is how could it help teach young children how to brush their teeth properly? One key factor is that we want to teach children to spend a little bit longer brushing their teeth. Children have very short attention spans generally. So what we want them to understand is how long 5 minutes actually is, and somewhere get them to understand and recognise that length of time that would be required for them to brush their teeth. Now, there's many ways that you might consider doing that. It might be to do with noise, it might be to do with light, it might be to do with some kind of interactivity, but this would add another level of complexity to your toothbrush, but also make it more appealing to both the child but also the parent, and therefore make it a more viable option when it came to being for sale. So develop your favourite design, incorporate all the previous criteria, but now see if you can add an educational element to your design. Okay, off you go. Okay, so just as you're working, if you're getting to a point where you're struggling with this, just think about things like some sort of timer, possibly a visible timer that counts down. Could something possibly play a certain tune for 5 minutes? Could you consider breaking down those 5 minutes into separate individual minutes to help the child concentrate? Possibly some kind of reward involved, which always helps youngsters focus on a particular task. So I'll give you 1 more minute with those thoughts in mind, and then we'll move on to the final criteria. Okay, so if you want to finish that particular idea off as we move into the final round. So criteria 5, this is the final criteria. So we're trying to bring everything together now, plus this final piece of information. Now, I think overall, this one is probably the trickiest. I want you to think about how you could get your toothbrush and your toothpaste combined. So in other words, could you create some kind of mechanism, some kind of concept that allows the whole device to work in one single unit? So rather than having necessarily a completely separate toothbrush and a completely separate tube of toothpaste, is there some way that the toothpaste could easily be put onto the brush, or you could buy both things combined? Could the toothpaste possibly be combined inside the toothbrush? These are just a few thoughts and ideas that I've seen other people come up with over the course of time. But technically, this is probably the most challenging out of all of the criteria. Might need a little bit of thought. How can you get that toothpaste onto that toothbrush and combine in one sort of attractive, simple unit that the child can use? Okay, off you go. Last few minutes on this one. Now, as you're designing, just keep in mind the idea that the typical recommended amount of toothpaste for a young child is what they refer to as a pea-sized amount. So we're trying to come up with a way to ensure that the children don't put too much toothpaste on and also don't put too little on. So, say some kind of dispensing device would be very beneficial to the design. Right, so if you can be finishing off that design. And what I'm going to show you now is a little example of a page that was actually done by one of our trainee teachers. So this wasn't done by a student of your age. This was done by a mature student who was training to be a teacher, who actually has had a background of product design at university. So if you have a little look at this, you could maybe look at this and compare it with some of your ideas. It's really nice to see what other people can come up with. So if we just think back to some of those criteria, you can see here with things like the handles, some nice little sort of textured shapes there that would help with ergonomics. Maybe a hooped handle that the child could put their fingers through to help hold them. From a hygiene point of view, various different ideas for caps and holders and different ways that you could keep the end of the toothbrush clean. Some characterization with aliens or penguins, various different ideas for different characters. Again, things that would appeal to that particular market. This is a nice design here with the space rocket. So the idea is that the toothbrush body is the space rocket in a shape that would be easy to hold, but when it comes off its stand, it starts off a 5-minute launch timer, which obviously helps teach the child how to brush their teeth. Also, that stand encourages the child to put the toothbrush back on its stand, so therefore it keeps it clean and hygienic. And a few little ideas for how the toothpaste could come out of the brush head. So you can see here where it says pea size amount. So the toothbrush is hollow with a kind of capsule of toothpaste inside it, like a little canister of toothpaste that can gradually get squeezed or pushed up through the neck of the toothbrush and come out on the toothbrush head. So lots of clever ideas, and this person produced this particular design sheet in a similar way to you with those particular time constraints. So hopefully what we've done today is give you an idea of this this idea of what we call iterative design. So iterative design, developing your designs over time, being creative, being willing to change designs as criteria change. And quite often as a designer, you're not always going to be designing products that you're necessarily overly familiar with. You're often designing products based on a brief that's given to you. So I'd be really interested to see some of the ideas that you've created and generated. If possible, you're obviously welcome to spend a little bit longer on those design sheets if you've got some ideas. You might even want to produce one final idea that you've refined into a higher quality design. And it'd be really nice if you could photograph those designs, and you're welcome to send them through to me via my school email, which is m.whittaker@huntington-ed.org.uk. Okay, so that's obviously on the school email system if you look for m.whittaker. And I'd love to see any work you produced, and I could give you a little bit of feedback on what I think regarding your work. But any skills that you can develop like this, as far as designing, creating, working under pressure of time, those sketching skills are really, really important when you move forward from year 11 into sixth form product design. I hope you've enjoyed having a go at that, and I hope you enjoy your future in design technology and product design. And hopefully I'll see you at some point in the future producing some top quality work. Okay, thank you very much.